The Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leisure Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, BTZD Clothing, and the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast, the Parramatta Times.
G'day, it's Gus Walland here from Gotcha for Life and Triple M. I'd love to invite you along to the Mental Fitness Gym. Go to the mentalfitnessgym.org. That is a place where you can pick up some exercises to build your mental fitness, to work on that emotional muscle, those muscles in your head that are so powerful. Please come and join us at the mentalfitnessgym.org for all that stuff to build your emotional muscle and your mental fitness.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. It is a grand final day. Well, it's not grand final day, it's the day before the grand final day. It is a Saturday before the Sunday game, 7:30pm kickoff at Accor Stadium, the NRL grand final. The Penrith Panthers are taking on the Melbourne Storm. The two best teams of 2024 face off in the ultimate challenge for the ultimate prize. Now, as we all know, the Panthers, they have made their fifth grand final in a row. An absolutely amazing effort from the Panthers to make 5 grand finals in a row. They are going for their 4th premiership in a row. That would be sensational if they did get that. Not since the Dragons' 11-year run have we seen something like that happen before. The Storm, well, look, these two teams played in the 2020 grand final and the Storm got the better of them that day. Now, the two teams have played in 3 finals games, and the Panthers, they hold a short lead, 2 wins to the Storm's 1, but that Storm victory was in that 2020 grand final. That was played on October 25. Now, that was in front of a crowd of 37,303. Now, that was the COVID year, so I think the crowds were... That is why the grand final was played a little bit later on in the season, October 25. And also the crowds, they were limited in that time. So I think for every 1 ticket, they had to have 2 tickets, two seats away from each other, something like that, with that social distancing law. But anyway, don't worry about that. That's long gone. We don't want to talk about COVID times. The second time they played was in 2021. That was a prelim final. The Panthers won that 10 points to 6. That was up at Suncorp Stadium due to the competition relocated up into Queensland. Now, they wore the pink jerseys on that occasion. So they have had a couple of victories against the Melbourne Storm in those pink jerseys, and it will be the first time in 117 years that a rugby league team has worn pink jerseys in the grand final. So obviously the Melbourne Storm finished the season minor premiers, so they will play in their home strip, and the Penrith Panthers, their pink jersey is their away jersey, so they finished second on the regular season. So very interesting there. They have beaten them a couple of times in the pink jerseys. Round 23, 2023, the Panthers won 26 points to 6. Then also round 18, so only 5 weeks apart there, the Panthers won 34 points to 16. Also in the pink jerseys, Isaac Tungo scored 2 tries on that occasion. That game was played at Marvel Stadium. That was due to the Women's World Cup, the soccer that was taking place at Amy Park. So they moved a couple of the Melbourne Storm games to Marvel Stadium in that year. And I think, so that's a couple of times that the Panthers have won in the pink jerseys. They don't have a necessarily good record in those jerseys. Now, according to a random stats guy on Instagram who's doing some great stuff on there, rugby league related, giving some great stats, especially some this week as well. Now, in that pink jersey, the Panthers have a 57% win rate. They have... This is in 2024, I should say. So a 57% win rate. It's actually their alternative jersey. 4 wins, 3 losses. So that is in 2024. So, look, does it worry them what colour they wear? Probably not. I think it's probably actually pretty cool that they wear pink, just creating a little bit more history as well. Look, the last time they played in finals was the 2023 prelim final, and that was won by the Panthers 38 points to 4. That was played at this venue of Accor Stadium as well. So that was played in front of 35,578. Now, this season, it is 2-0 to Melbourne, you could say, and they had a 8-0 victory over the Panthers. That was played at Amy Park. That was round 1 of the competition. That was on a Friday night, and the second win was 24-22 to the Storm. That was played at Bluebet Stadium in Penrith. Now, that was a pretty controversial night, that one. There was a try that was awarded that many thought would have been a obstruction. There was the big Nelson tackle on his own teammate, you could say, Cameron Munster, which Nelson got sin-binned, and I think he would have got suspended for, which probably didn't help his cause just recently, because he is out of this grand final. We all know that now. His judiciary case was on Monday night, so that is a huge loss for the Melbourne Storm, losing a big man like Nelson, as Phil Gould would say, probably the biggest human on the planet, or in the game, definitely, but a massive loss for the Melbourne Storm, particularly coming up against Moses Leota and James Fisher-Harris. So at the moment, the Melbourne Storm hold that advantage, but as we all know, in these big games, that does not matter if you have beaten the Panthers during the regular season. We saw Parramatta do it in 2022, beat them both times in the regular season, and the Panthers turned it around in the finals, in the big games, and got them in the first qualifying final and also the grand final as well. So regular season victories probably don't necessarily count. Could it be a little bit of a mental edge? Maybe a tiny little bit, but the Melbourne Storm, they know that Penrith always aim up in these, especially these big games, because that's what they play for, these big games. As long as they win their games throughout the season to get to the finals, then it's a whole different ball game. Now, from that 2020 grand final, of which these two teams played, the Storm have 4 players that remain from that team. Now, they are Ryan Pappenhausen, Cameron Munster, Jerome Hughes, and Christian Welsh. They would have had 5 with Big Nelson as well, but he was suspended for this game. But he played in that game at lock forward in that game against the Panthers in 2020. Jesse Bromwich and Christian Welsh, who is playing on the weekend, were the other 2 prop forwards. So, look, there's some really good stories about the Melbourne Storm going around. Sean Blaw, who plays in the second row for the Storm. He's a Penrith junior, suffered an ACL injury, I think it was last year or the year before, and there were thoughts that potentially he wouldn't come back. I think that's when he was at the Tigers. He was worried about his future, but then Craig Bellamy came knocking. He got the phone call, and look, the rest is history. He's playing in a grand final. Tyrone Wishart, they missed to fix it. They're number 14, who I think will be a pretty important key or cog, I guess you could say, in this Melbourne Storm side, because you never know what can happen in a game of rugby league. And with his versatility and being able to play a number of positions both in the backs and the forwards, I think he could be a major key and a good component to have on the bench. But his dad, Rod Wishart, actually lost the grand final to the Melbourne Storm way back in 1999, but I am sure that he will be cheering on the Melbourne Storm this weekend as his son is playing for that side. So a little bit of a good story there. Harry Grant, the captain, we all know what a great player he is. He's represented Queensland, he's played for Australia, he's won a World Cup for Australia, but this is his first grand final, so something a little bit different for Harry this week, obviously with all the media commitments, and being the captain of the Melbourne Storm. Well, being the captain in a grand final team, you are a lot busier during the week. So he is in his first grand final. Three key players for the Melbourne Storm, obviously Cameron Munster, Jerome Hughes and Ryan Pappenhausen. They played in that 2020 grand final. They were the halves and Pappenhausen was a fullback. He got the Clive Churchill medal in that game, scored a blistering try. I think it was about a 60-metre effort, I think it was, about maybe a 70-metre effort. Just broke through the line and his speed got him across the line. It was a great try. I'm sure it's been played a few times this week already. But look, as I mentioned before, Nelson Solomona is out of this game. Now, another, I guess you could say, grand final story is Lazarus Va'alipu comes onto the interchange bench in number 16. He's played 6 games of first grade. His 7th game will be his first grand final, and it will be a grand final. So what about that story? That is amazing. We all know that the captain of the Melbourne Storm in 1999 was Glenn Lazarus. So look, 6 games in first grade and then playing in a grand final. That, if the Melbourne Storm get up for victory, that would be an amazing story. Look, a back three for Melbourne, Ryan Pappenhausen, Will Warbrick and Xavier Coates. We know that they can get the metres out of their own half from kick returns. They are hard workers. They can get the, like the Panthers as well, with Edwards, Taruva and Brian Toto. We all know what Brian Toto is like, getting out of his own half and taking those runs and the metres that he can get. So that will be a good clash there, but we all know what those guys can do getting out of their own half. It will be pretty important in this game, definitely, to be able to get those metres out of your own half. Look, if we go back, or if we go across to the Panthers, 8 players remain from the 2020 grand final. But look, they have that big game experience, making it to the grand final the last 4 years in a row. This will be their 5th in a row. So will they look at that game as a revenge game? I don't know. I don't think they will, to be honest. There has been some comments and some posts in the media about how they actually used that 2020 grand final as motivation to go one better in 2021, which they did against South Sydney, and look what they've done since. So I definitely don't think it's a revenge game, but they certainly did use that game as motivation. Look, the Storm on average have scored more points this season, but the Panthers have a better defensive record. So it's all very well to score points, but in a game like this, your defence needs to be on song. So I think it is a key component in a game of rugby league, but look, in saying that, if you score more points than the opposition, you're going to go a good way to winning the game, but you do not want to be scoring a lot of points and then letting in a lot of points. I mean, it's no comparison at all, but we did see the Parramatta St George game earlier this season where it ended up being 44 points to 40. You definitely do not want to do that in a grand final, but scoring more points is good, but having a better defence is even better as well, because if you can score those points and defend as well, then you will win the game. Completion rates are pretty similar for the season. Penrith on 80%, the Storm on 79%. And again, the back three for the Panthers, they know how to get those metres out of their own end, especially. We all know Brian To'o is massive in getting those metres in games. So sometimes 200 metres plus easy. So we all know what he is like. It'll be interesting to see where the Melbourne Storm, mostly probably Jerome Hughes, kicks the ball, which side of the field, whether he will target Taruva or To'o as well. So maybe kick to To'o and try and limit his, like, the first off the ruck runs, like he can be pretty successful in doing. So look, there has been some great grand final statistics come through the weekend, and these two teams are going to play at a core stadium, obviously. The Storm have scored 213 points in their past 5 games, a couple of big victories there. And as I mentioned before, if the Panthers win the grand final, they will become the first club in 58 years to win 4 consecutive grand finals. As I said, amazing effort. If they can do that, it's already an amazing effort what they have done so far, but to win 4 would be absolutely amazing, especially in this era of a salary cap and the 6-tackle rule as well, and the way that the game's played these days. It's just so much different to 58 years ago, obviously. The Storm have 4 players who have played a total of 9 grand finals, and the Panthers have 13 players who have played a total of 39 grand finals. Storm halfback Jerome Hughes will make his 150th NRL appearance, and look, wouldn't that be a special story as well if he and the Melbourne Storm can win the grand final on Sunday? Not only would he have the premiership, he would also have the Dally M Player of the Year award, Dally M Halfback of the Year, 150th NRL appearance in a grand final, and look, if Melbourne Storm win, I'm sure he will be one of the key components, obviously, and he will go close, if not win, the Clive Churchill medal, which I am sure, no doubt, he will be one of the favourites to win that. Panthers winger, who I just spoke about, Brian To'o, has scored 9 tries in 11 games against the Storm. So I'm sure he will want to keep that record going and score a try in the grand final. Look, if you're looking to have a bit of a flutter on the game, gamble responsibly, he would probably be one of the ones that you would pick for a anytime try scorer. Storm fullback Ryan Pappenhausen has scored a try in all 4 games he has played at a core stadium. So there's another good little statistic there. Maybe another little flutter on Ryan Pappenhausen to score a try, but once again, gamble responsibly. The Panthers have won 11 of their past 13 games at a core stadium. Craig Bellamy, who, congratulations to him, who won Coach of the Year at the Dally M Awards for 2024. He will equal Wayne Bennett's record of 10 grand finals as coach, an absolutely amazing career. And the Panthers have conceded an average of 9.6 points in their past 11 finals games. Now, that is a 9.6 points. That is an amazing. We all know that they've got the best defence in the rugby league competition this year, but especially in finals games, and I think they have set the record as well, or equalled the record for most number of finals wins in a row with 11 as well. So an amazing effort from the Panthers, one that every team would certainly like to have, that is for sure. Now, if we look at a few of the key matchups, well, look, I mean, obviously the halves battle, that is going to be a massive one. Cameron Munster, Jerome Hughes versus Jerome Luai, Nathan Cleary. We have all seen what Nathan Cleary has done in grand finals in the past. Practically won it for Penrith last year in the last 18 minutes of the game with a 40-20 kick, a try assist, and that try right at the end there that he scored. So we all know what he can do in big games. This is probably Jerome Hughes' biggest game of his career, I'd say. Look, he has won that premiership before in 2020, but I think just this game is probably even bigger. And why I say that is because he has established himself as a first grader, is the best player in the rugby league competition, having won that Dally M medal. So, look, I think this is his biggest game of his career. Cameron Munster, he's been there before. He knows these big games, both in clubland, Queensland, Australia. And, look, the Panthers have been there the last 4 years, so the last 5 years. So they obviously know what they are doing. Another one that is an interesting matchup is the two hookers, Harry Grant and Mitch Kenny. Look, they are obviously two of the smallest players on the field. They both average over 35 tackles per match. And we know what they can do in attack as well, especially when those big forwards get a little bit tired. We all can see what Harry Grant has done in the past, just scooping that ball up from dummy half and making a break and then getting a pass off to a support player. Mitch Kenny as well scored the first try in last year's grand final. So he has that grand final experience. As I mentioned before, Harry Grant playing his first one as well. So that will be an interesting one there. I think also too, it's going to be a big job for Trent Liero up against Isaiah Yeo. Look, Isaiah Yeo, he has redefined that lock forward position. He is a massive key for this Penrith side. We all see that Panthers players love playing with Isaiah. And look, the call came out the other day from Roy Simmons on I think it was SEN Sports Day with Scott Sutler and Matt Rogers the other day. He claimed that Isaiah Yeo is the best forward that he has ever seen. So that is a massive rap there. Just shows you how important he is to this team. So, look, that will be some key matchups as well. If we look at a few of the others, look, I think the two front row forwards for Melbourne, Tui Kamikamica and Josh King. Obviously, the Bash brothers on the other side, Moses Leota and James Fisher-Harris. James Fisher-Harris playing his last game for the club before going to the New Zealand Warriors, as is Jerome Luai playing his last game for the club before he goes to the West Tigers, as is Taruva. So the Panthers are losing a few players at the end of this year, but that front row forward battle, that'll be a big one. Big Tui, he's got a big job on his hands, filling the shoes of a Big Nelson. He has played a few big games before, but stepping in a grand final, look, he probably would have been on the bench anyway, but starting a grand final, that is a massive thing. So he's got a big job. Josh King, he's probably a little bit underrated. He probably just gets his job done. So he will have a big job on his hands as well. But one of the other things that probably is something that hasn't been talked about a lot, we have seen, is probably the taller wingers that Melbourne have up against the shorter wingers, obviously, of the Penrith Panthers, and whether there'll be cross-field kicks for these Melbourne wingers, Will Warbrick and Xavier Coates, to use their aerial skills to score tries. That will probably be one of the things that Melbourne do, I guess. The wingers for the Penrith Panthers, Brian Toto and Taruva, will have their jobs cut out for them in that department. But look, I'm sure they'll be able to handle it. But that will be one advantage that the Melbourne Storm have, I guess. Another matchup that is probably another area of the field that is probably going to be an interesting one, because I think the centre battle of Jack Howarth, Nick Meaney for the Melbourne Storm up against Isaac Tango and Paul Alamotti. Look, 3 of those 4 players are playing in their first grand final. 2 of them for Melbourne. Isaac, he's been there before, won premiership, so he's got the experience. Paul Alamotti scored his first career double last week against the Cronulla Sharks, playing in his first grand final at 20 years of age. But one player like Jack Howarth, who's come onto the scene this season, didn't start the year in the centres in the starting position, has grasped that position now and is a really good attacking player. Scored a great try last week against the Roosters, but that doesn't count for anything this week up against the Penrith Panthers. Look, Dylan Edwards and Ryan Pappenhausen, that they are 2 key components of each other's teams. Dylan Edwards has come under a little bit of scrutiny throughout the year, made his Origin debut, but a knee injury as well. He's come under a little bit of scrutiny from that. Ryan Pappenhausen as well has had his issues in the past, but it's great to see him back fit and firing. And look, the big question that has been asked all week has been Nathan Cleary. Will his shoulder hold up? How's his actual hand as well? That was strapped up last week against the Sharks as well, but it's more about the shoulder. He did... I guess you could say he did tap the shoulder last week against the Sharks. He was taken off early. Obviously, the Panthers had a massive lead in that game, so why risk him? But he says the shoulder is amazing. It is the most asked question to him this week. about how that shoulder is. But look, surely that would have to be in the back of your mind. He will have to try and put it out of his head. And that will be one thing, I think, anyway, that the Melbourne Storm would target. Look, it was an interesting thing that Cooper Cronk said on the Matt Johns podcast on Fox the other day about a tactic that he would be using, or he would think that he would be using anyway if he was playing, would be to kick the ball to Nathan on the fifth tackle, just to test that shoulder out. He generally on the fifth tackle drops back to about the 40-metre line, sometimes like in that area there, or 10 metres or so just behind the defensive line. But look, if you're in that zone, why not try a kick to him and then test out that shoulder? No doubt the Melbourne Storm will want to try and test out that shoulder, but if they get too hung up on trying to target Nathan, then that's where Jerome Luai will come into it, and he will obviously be the player who will try and win the game for the Panthers if the Melbourne Storm target Nathan Cleary. They've just got other weapons out in the team to get the job done. Look, my prediction, it could go either way in this game. Surprisingly, with the betting agencies, the Melbourne Storm have gone into this game as favourites. Look, that may be a thing that they were the minor premiers, but it's very hard to believe, because you would think that the Panthers would be favourites going into this game, and that is only because they have won the last 3 competitions in a row. This is their 5th grand final in a row. But look, so it's going to be really hard to tough choice to pick. Could be a flip of the coin. Look, not because I'm a Parramatta supporter and I don't necessarily like the Panthers too much. We're friendly rivals, I guess you could say. I'm going to tip the Melbourne Storm to win. I just think that their last 2 finals have been good victories for them. They've scored a lot of points. They've got the Dally M Player of the Year, Jerome Hughes, in their side. They've got Cameron Munster, and yes, I know everyone will say, yeah, but the Panthers have got Nathan Cleary and Jerome Luai, but I just think the Melbourne Storm will just get the victory. When I say just, I'm going to say by 8 points. I'm going to say 24-16 to the Melbourne Storm. I'm going to say Will Warbrick, the first try scorer, and I'm going to say Jerome Hughes caps off an amazing week and wins the Clive Churchill Medal for 2024. But look, this is going to be a cracker of a game. I could be completely wrong, obviously, but look, congratulations to Penrith on making their 5th straight grand final. Will the dream historic run, continue? Only time will tell, but look, this is going to be a cracker of a game. Most are saying actually, that this will be the greatest grand final ever. We've had some crackers in the past, 1989, 2015 come to mind. Even last year's grand final, it looked like the Broncos were going to win that one in a canter, but then Nathan Cleary clicked and Penrith clicked and they got the victory. So look, this is going to be a cracker of a game, but that is my tips there for that game there. Look, we'll go to the other grand final that is being played on this day, and that is in the NRLW. And that is between the Roosters and Sharks. That is at 3:55 p.m. That is the kickoff time. The Roosters, Well, look, they fell short of the minor premiership, but they still finished second in the regular season. Had a great victory last week against the defending premiers, the Newcastle Knights, 25 points to 16. So they are star-studded in their side. They have the NRLW Dally M Player of the Year in their side, Olivia Koenig. Congratulations to her for winning that medal. But look, they've also got other players, Millie Elliott, Keely Davis, Taryn Aiken as well at halfback. The competition's leading point scorer, Jocelyn Kelleher. Their centre partners, the centre partnership, Isabel Kelly, the captain, Jessica Sergis, the other centre there, came back from injury last weekend. And also, what about this story here? The return of Sam Bremner at fullback. She wasn't in the team at the start of the year, got the SOS call, I guess you could say, and after the injury to Corbin Baxter, who did her ACL, she's come back. She's played 9 games this year, absolutely killed it. She has scored 2 tries in her last 2 games. Absolutely on fire. The Roosters, they're looking for their second title, having won in 2021, and it's their 4th grand final, having won 1, lost 2. So they will want to obviously get those figures back up. But as I said, they are a star-studded side. They are coached very well by John Strange. So they know what to do. They will go into this game as favourites. You would like to think that would anyway. But look, grand final day can throw up anything. We know that you just need to be the best on the day, to be honest. We have seen in the past other teams lose these games being favourites. So anything can happen on the day. So the Roosters, they'll have to be on their game. Obviously, key players for them, as I just mentioned, Taryn Aiken, a big key player. We all know what Isabel Kelly can do. It didn't look like she'd be playing semi-finals and finals and this grand final with that elbow injury, but she's overcome that one. So she is a definite key player, and probably Olivia Koenig as well, a big key player as well. We have seen Amber Hall score some close range tries as well, so keep an eye out for that one. That will maybe be one of the plays that the Roosters do. If we flick over to the Sharks, well, congratulations to them. This is their 2nd season in the NRLW, and they've made a grand final. A big ask for them. They had a bit of a form slump during the back end of the regular season, losing their last 3. They came out, they beat the Broncos last week 14-0, kept them to 0. The first time in Broncos NRLW history that they have not scored a point, and just went up there, everything to win, nothing to lose. But they had that mentality and they got the job done, and now they're into the grand final. So congratulations to them. A big thing for them is some of their players that they have, led by Captain Tiana Penatani, their Player of the Year at the Cronulla Sharks in the NRLW, and big game experience as well. Has played Origin, has played for the Gillaroos. So some big experience there. Anessa Biddle in the centre position. She can, big in defence, can pull off some big hits, and can score tries. Scored a try last week against the Broncos as well. Taylor Preston, she is playing her last game for the Cronulla Sharks. She's moving on to the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, who are coming into the competition next season. Played in the 2022 Grand Final for Parramatta against the Newcastle Knights, so has that little bit of experience there. Holly Wheeler comes back into the side after being suspended for the semi-final. Look, the Cronulla Sharks, they started off the season in sensational form, having won their first six in a row. Then they lost their last 3 games of the regular season, and they beat the Broncos last week. So this will be a big clash, a classic game as well. And look, if you are going to the Storm and Panthers Grand Final, I encourage you to get there early and watch this game as well, because this will be a cracker. I guess you could say the two form teams of the competition, the Cronulla Sharks and the Sydney Roosters. Couple of key matchups. One will be Jocelyn Kelleher versus Georgia Hannaway. A bit of a surprise packet, I think. Georgia Hannaway, she's done very well this season, jumping in that number 6 jersey for the Cronulla Sharks, moving down from Queensland. Jocelyn Kelleher, as I mentioned before, the top point scorer in the competition. She has scored 70 points in 10 matches this season. So goal kicking could play a part in this. So keep an eye out for that one. The other one as well could be the Dally-M NRLW Dally-M Player of the Year, Olivia Koenig, up against Brooke Anderson for the Sharks. Brooks played all 10 games for the Sharks this season. And Olivia Koenig has played all 10 as well. They both played 10 matches, and look, they both made 301 tackles each, so averaging more than 30 tackles a match. So both their work rates will be crucial. Defence is always crucial in grand finals. So they will be key components as well. But look, again, I think the centre battle is going to be a good one as well. Look, the two centres for the Roosters, Kelly and Sergis, really experienced players, Origin level, Australian level, as is Tiana Penatani. Anessa Biddle has played a couple of games for the New Zealand side, the Kiwi Ferns, in the Pacific Championships last year, but is, as I mentioned before, great defence and can score tries as well. 4 tries, I should say, this season for the Sharks. None more crucial than the one that she scored last weekend. So, look, this will be a great game as well. So, as I mentioned before, if you can get out to that, if you are going to a core stadium for the Panthers and Sharks game, get out there nice and early and at 3:55 and watch this game against the Roosters and Sharks in the NRLW, because they deserve to have a big crowd to play in front of. It'll be a cracking game, and who knows how many points will be scored. A few stats for this grand final. The last 2 head-to-head games have been massively won by the Roosters. They have, in these last 2 games, they have scored 76 points against the Sharks 12. There was a 40-0 game this season, so the Sharks will want to forget about that one. The Sharks have 10 players with grand final experience, but no one has tasted victory. So a lot of players have played in grand finals there, but they will want to go one better. Obviously, it'll be the Sharks' first grand final victory in the NRLW. if they can get the job done. The Roosters will make their 4th appearance in a grand final. Shark centre and captain Tiana Penatani will be a key component in this side. As I just mentioned before, she's scored 5 tries in her past 6 games. An interesting one here for the Roosters NRLW side. They've lost 4 from 4 at Accor Stadium. So talk about a little bit of a ground hoodoo. And this will be the first time the Sharks play at Accor Stadium. So, look, that's an interesting one there. So if the Sharks get up for victory, they'll be 1 from 1. And the Roosters will be 5 from 5 losses at Accor Stadium. So is there such a thing as a ground hoodoo? We do know in the NRL there is, with a few going around, but that's an interesting one for the Roosters. Sam Bremner, who I said who has come back at the start of the year, has scored 5 tries in the past 4 games, so keep an eye out for her. She can make some great line breaks, which will lead to tries. Sharks winger Georgia Ravics has scored 10 tries in 15 NRLW appearances. Mentioning before that the Sharks have 10 players with grand final experience. Well, the Roosters have 12 players who have won an NRL grand final, so they know what it takes to win a grand final. So that will be a key component all week. They just have that experience of winning a grand final. They know what it takes to win, so that'll be interesting there. Also, that's a key component leading up in the week as well. 3 players will play their final game for the Sharks: Holly Wheeler, Taylor Preston and Tegan Dimmick, as they move on to the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, I believe it is. So they will be playing their last game for the Cronulla Sharks. So a little bit of movement there in the Sharks team. Look, this will be a cracker of a game as well. As I mentioned, get out there again if you can, nice and early. But look, I am going to tip. I would love to see the Sharks win their first grand final. I always like seeing teams who haven't won before win. I just think they have their work cut out for them against this Roosters side. I think the Roosters will get the job done and win. Look, the fairy tale would be the Sharks win their first. The fairy tale on the other side for the Roosters would be Sam Bremner, who hasn't won an NRLW premiership. She's done everything else in the game, Origins and Gillaroos appearances, but has never won a grand final. So this is her one and only shot. She will retire from playing after this game, so that would be a good fairy tale story. There's always a fairy tale in a rugby league and grand finals, so it'd be great to see that one happen as well. So look, this game, I'm going to tip, as I said, I'm going to tip the Roosters. I'm going to tip them to win 20 points to 16. So 20 points to 16. It's going to be a close game, I think. The player of the match is the Karen Murphy medal. The Karen Murphy medal will go to Taryn Aiken. There you go. There's my choices. 20 to 16 to the Roosters. Taryn Aiken to get the Karen Murphy medal. And I'm going to say, look, this one might be a little bit out of the ballpark, but I have seen this season this sort of try be scored before, but I think it's the crush play try, and I'm going to tip Amber Hall to score the first try. There you go. One that's probably a little bit out of left field, but I think one that has the potential to happen, as we have seen it happen this season. So I'm going to tip Amber Hall to score the first try. Amber Hall to score the first try. There we go. So look, if you are having a little bit of a flutter on that game or any of the NRL game, please gamble responsibly. I'm not associated with any gambling companies, but please gamble responsibly. Look, there's my previews for both the NRLW and the NRL games for this weekend. Look, grand final day, it is a amazing day for rugby league fans. It's like Christmas Day, I think, for rugby league fans, grand final day. And look, there's 3 games being played on that day. Obviously, these 2 that I have mentioned, but also the state championships as well. The Newtown Jets versus the North Devils. So that game kicks off at 1:20 p.m. So if you are a massive rugby league lover, get out there for all 3 if you are going for the games. But I will be watching all 3 probably in the Para Cave. But 1:20 p.m. the North Devils take on the Newtown Jets. So that'll be an interesting game as well. The Newtown Jets getting the win over the North Sydney Bears in the New South Wales Cup, and the North Devils getting the victory over the Redcliffe Dolphins in the Queensland Cup. So that'll be an interesting one there. A couple NRL players in both sides for that one. So that one's 1:20 p.m. So I'll be watching rugby league all day. It's a great day, grand final day, as I mentioned before, Christmas for rugby league fans. And I'll be watching it in the Para Cave. So enjoy your grand final day. If your teams are playing in the grand finals, all the best of luck. I hope you can experience a grand final victory, and it would be a great sensation if you can. To all the grand final teams that are playing, congratulations on reaching the grand final. It is a massive achievement. Well done. And that is enough of me talking. I appreciate your listening of this podcast. It is a long one. I can ramble on a little bit, but I hope you've enjoyed it. But thank you very much for your support throughout the year. I will be doing a grand final reviews as well of the NRLW and the NRL as well next week, so stay tuned for that. And I will be doing some stuff throughout the Pacific Championships as well, so stay tuned for that one. But thank you for listening to this one. I hope you really enjoyed it. Enjoy your grand final day, and look, I know they're not playing in either grand finals in the NRLW or the NRL, but look, as I always say, go Para!
Hello, Para Cave podcast listeners. My name is Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty and long-term sponsor of the Para Cave podcast. If you're looking to sell your property or buy, or just curious to know what your property is worth in today's market, give me a call today on 0421 588 445.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Para Cave Podcast.